Welcome to the podcast. It starts with you, with me, Vic O'Farrell. I ask my guests, by understanding their own behaviours and personality style, what impact on their lives, both personally and professionally, has there been? What is it like to live and work with someone of your style? I mean, this is not about labelling people, putting people in boxes, or an excuse for bad behaviour. It's about recognising, understanding and respecting that we're all different. And what impact can you have on others by looking in the mirror? Because it starts with you. And another episode of It Starts With You. I am delighted and excited. More than anything, actually, if you're listening, apologies, but if you're watching, you'll actually notice that me and Lou have even got matching red-rimmed glasses on today. So I am delighted and excited to be joined by the wonderful Lou Baxter. And Lou, introduce yourself. What do you do? Where do you? I sounded like Cilla Black then, didn't you? Tell us your name, where you come from, and everything. what you are, your personality, and what you do for life.
Right, so my personality is I am a persuader. My job is in my day job, I'm head of the National Trading Standards Scams team. I have some other roles as well. So I'm a non-exec director for the Property Ombudsman Service, for Trustmark. I sit on the consumer panel for phone paid services, providing advice and information to them. I do some other consultancy bits, and I also run my own organisation with my business partner, Adam, called Consumer Friend, which is about making consumer rights accessible to everyone and training businesses on consumer vulnerability.
Okay, so when do you have time to breathe?
I don't. You can ask my kids out. I also look after my two beautiful children. No, I'm not very good at sitting still. You know this anyway, Vic. I'm not a sitter. I'm a doer. I tend to be busy all the time. I'm also, with my the way my personality profile is, I'm very much in the camp of that'll do, and my that'll do is quite good, not in an arrogant way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So as a persuader, so for those that are listening, that is yellow red. It is ID, which is, yes, very similar to me. And I know lots of people going, oh, well, you seem to get the same kind of guests on. It's hard getting reserved. If you know that you are reserved and you're listening to this and you are more of a CD character or a CS character, please do get in contact. I'd love to have you on the show. But yes, very ID. And under pressure, though, you're very red, are you not?
Very red, and my detail comes above my line, which is helpful when you run a national team that deals with scams and fraud.
Yes. So yeah, I mean, yes, you're absolutely right. I have worked with you. That was before COVID, but probably 5-6 years ago, we started working together. What has it meant to you to understand not just your personality, but to be able to understand that of the teams that you work around? What impacts it had?
Well, we did a lot of training with you where we mapped out the whole team, didn't we? Because I wanted to see where the gaps were and actually what sort of the spread we'd got. The first thing it made me realise was I'm the only one like me in the team. Yeah, that's what they all said. They were all like, for you. I mean, to be honest, and I've had the people like I used to find people like me very irritating. If somebody has the same personality profile as me, they either make me want to compete or like grind my gears to the point that I'm like, that human's annoying. When I've recognised that, I've realised, oh, okay. So I don't feel like that about people like me now. I view that through a very different lens. So that helped me address why I was a bit intolerant of people, I suppose. From my team perspective, it's given me huge amounts of clarity about why people need the information they do, why I might be viewed or perceived in a certain way. So I've been able to adapt my behaviour and the way that I work to provide better support to my team, but also get the best out of my team by actually considering their personality profiling.
Yeah, because your team is you've got quite a, what I'd describe as a green team. But then when you think about what it is that you do as, well, you tell the listeners what you're responsible for.
So we deal with international fraud in relation to letters, telephone and doorstep crime. And we do proactive identification of the victims, and we do the international law enforcement and disruption in relation to that. We also do trying to ensure that we've got best practice and a consistent victim support across the piece, so training standards and police forces and practitioners. So whatever we do to support victims is the right thing. So everything we do has a victim at the heart of it, because with fraud and scams, mostly it's talked about statistics and it's a victimless crime, and victims of fraud aren't treated like victims of other crimes. So actually we try to spin that around and make sure that those people are protected and supported in the best way possible.
Yeah, because when I first met you and you were telling me about the size of the scams, and just from, you know, postal letters, it was just unbelievable. And like you say, people who've been scammed are then ashamed to even admit it, and so actually what you're reporting is probably a very, very small percentage, because most of it goes unreported, is it not?
Well, it's we're talking about a £10 billion loss to the UK every year from a statistic perspective, and we reckon between 5 and 30% of people report it. So it's 41% of all reported crime, and it's not very highly reported.
Still a massive amount. Can you repeat that?
Yeah, so it's 41% of all reported crime, and we reckon between 5 and 30% of people report it.
And the value?
10 billion at least.
10 billion. Just in
that's lost to the UK economy, but that's not the other effect. So for example, Vic, you get defrauded, you lose £400, right? You might be able to recover from that, right? That £400, yeah, that's going to give you some, but the mental health effects of that, the blame, the shame, the fact that you may never use online banking again, or you might not use the internet again, or that it might have such a catastrophic effect on your mental health, and that blame and that shame and that self-shaming could mean it has long-term effects. So there's other things around that as well. So we don't consider the well-being aspects of fraud when we talk about it. We talk about, oh, so-and-so lost money. The language we use around it is also really off. Like, you fell for, I wouldn't go, you fell for a burglary, you fell for a mugging.
No.
So you were a victim of a crime, you were a victim of a fraud. I wouldn't also say, like we say, oh, you lost money. We didn't lose it, you had it stolen from you. You didn't lose your purse, you had it stolen from you. So we're doing a lot of work around the blame and the shame, and shifting the language that people use to ensure that if I do decide to share my own personal experience of being a victim of fraud or scams, because there is a scam out there for everybody, it's not about people that are deemed to be vulnerable. And again, we're changing the definition of vulnerability, because it's your situational marketplace. People aren't vulnerable. So it can happen to anybody, and we don't accept that as society, which is why we use the blaming language. Because if you're a victim of a fraud or a scam, I have to differentiate myself from you, because otherwise it can happen to me. So I project all of that onto you. So you have to be stupid. You have to have fallen from it. Similar to what we do in a domestic abuse situation. Why did you stay? That sort of thing doesn't happen to people like you. We do the same sort of blame and shame, because again, that can happen to you, that might happen to me. So therefore you have to be different, which is why we put all this negative spin on it.
And that's really interesting in terms of the language that we use, because that kind of language is also coming from our subconscious brain, rather than stopping to think about the words that we use.
Yeah.
And to be fair, it's a societal thing, isn't it? That you've got a big ship to turn, but I know you are doing some amazing things. I mean, you were on this morning only a few weeks ago, probably. And
a few weeks ago, yeah.
Yeah. And so there were two ladies that were on that show with you. And the fact that is the kind of thing that is only going to help people to understand that average Joe on the street is susceptible to a fraud.
It happened to my mum, and like, if it can happen to the mum of the daughter of the head of the national scams team, do you know what I mean? My mum, and she was situationally vulnerable. She had COVID, and she got phoned at the wrong time because she wasn't very well, and then 4 days later she was well again. She's not vulnerable, my mum. This is the other thing. It can happen to anybody. The spectrum of fraud and scams is so vast. We can't, like, there's so many different angles that the criminals will take to get you. That's what they do. It's lucrative for them. Yeah. We have to be more open about it. We have to talk about it more. We have to take away that shame element to it, all of it, because the peer-to-peer support is most valuable. There's only me. I can go and bang the drum, be on This Morning, talk about it. Then I also go into, lots of private business as well, with my consumer friend hat on, I talk about vulnerability, and it's not just about fraud, it's about not getting the best outcomes, it's not getting the right thing that you need, not getting the right windows, or not getting the right funeral plan, or whatever that is. Because if it's the first time you've done something, you're vulnerable. If we start from that viewpoint, that situation going on around you, or the marketplace that you're trying to enter. So say you're financially strapped, say you're in a situation where you're continually worrying about money, which a lot of people are right now. There's your situational vulnerability. That increased stress, that increased effect on your well-being can cause that situational vulnerability. But say somebody's offered me a grant so that I can get solar panels on my house, because that's going to save me money on my gas and electricity. Not my gas, that would be amazing. The solars are going to save me money on my electricity. That's a marketplace I've never entered before, because it's the first time I've done it, and probably the only time I'm going to do it. So there's marketplace vulnerability there, which means there's susceptibility to not getting what you need, or a worst case scenario, becoming the victim of a crime. And it's rampant, shall we say.
Oh, I mean, I just look at the emails that I get. I even had one this morning. Please find the documents to download, and they're very clever, because this had come on the building, the Heath Construction email, and it was site drawings and architects' plans and structural engineers' calculations. That was the title of all the documents, and it looked like a WeTransfer, an official WeTransfer email. And then I looked and I thought, I've only been out of the house for 2 days. So I phoned Mark and I said, are we expecting, I said, because I don't recognise the person's name. I said, are we expecting some drawings? And he went, I haven't spoken to anyone. So I do the whole look at the email address that it comes from, which was something completely random and different. And they just covered it up that said WeTransfer. So I look at that and I just would naturally assume, click it and click the link. But I think the thing is, and because I've done so much work with you, I now really look at things. But if I hadn't worked with you, I probably would have just clicked on it. Next thing I know, I've opened a document and gone, oh, that's not the document, and closed it down. But there's already a link now into my computer. And I know that way, I mean, it's not a lot to get on a cloud system. If you really want to see my accounts, feel free to, but they're so clever. So clever.
And even the ones you get on the telephone, we're seeing a lot of them on the phone. And especially in the winter, we spend more time at home. So because it gets darker, you have less time to go out. So the telephone calls, and what they do is they push you into a sense of urgency, which is then what they do is they push you into a hot state. Once you're into a hot state, because they're like, oh, you need to do this now, pretend to be from the bank, or there's a one-time deal, you need to get this now, or your Amazon account's been compromised, or something like that. They push you into a hot state, which is like a state of panic. So you don't consider like you would if you were in a cold state. You have a very emotional response to it, and that's deliberate, because it's marketing but illegal. Yeah. It's about getting you to buy stuff by clicking on a link, or oh, I need that in my life. Oh, yeah. They're Insta perfect with them, they have no lines on their face, I'm totally buying some of that. Do you know what I mean? All that stuff. And I'm a sucker for that stuff. I love all those things.
Oh, so am I. And you get it and you go, what on earth have I bought here?
Why have I bought that?
That is a victim of fraud. Okay, I've paid money and I've got goods, but I haven't got the goods that they were advertising. So technically
that's misleading. So that could be fraud, or it could be misleading under different legislation. I won't go into that because that's very boring, but it's misleading actions or omissions. So things you say or things you don't say. I bought a lip tint the other day, right? I don't wear lipstick, I wear lip balm. I saw it, impulse purchased, bought it, right? And it stripped all the skin off my lips.
Oh my God.
I sent it back and got my money back, right? But it's probably because I just used it as well, because I didn't think, just used it in a hurry, all that sort of stuff. But again, and I laughed to myself, because it was £6, but I was like, why have you bought a lip tint? You don't even wear lipstick. Why have you just impulse purchased that again?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's very easily done, and I think that there's an element. It's organised crime, and what these criminals do is, the problem is, once you've responded to one scam or fraud, and there's a big debate about whether we should use the word scam or fraud, because scam doesn't make it sound serious enough, but fraud, the general public don't understand what that is because it's too broad a term. Is once you've responded to one, you get added to what's called a suckers list. So, and then the criminals use your personal information and then passport that and basically traffic your personal information from organised crime group to organised crime group. So you become the product. you become the value in that. So your personal information and your behavior and your likelihood to respond to a dodgy lip tint or whatever that is means that the more information they gather on you, the more valuable that becomes, the more valuable you become as an asset to sell on to other criminal groups, because they know what you're going to respond to.
Yeah.
So it's clever.
Tinted lip balm.
Tinted lip balm that strips your lips.
No. So coming back to, like, as in your behaviours, not the behaviours of, because that's the one thing that personality profiles don't do. It wouldn't show up that kind of behaviour. But you yourself, you have an MBE for your services, Lou.
I do. You know, it makes me uncomfortable, like, because I'm like, they might take it away.
But you have done some incredible work, and it is something you should be very, very proud of. Why do you feel?
I don't know. It's in my downstairs toilet. The picture of me and Prince William's in my downstairs toilet. And my scroll thing. No, it's a really. I got it in 2017. And so I was 37 when I got mine, and it wasn't very common for women or women under 40 to get them either. So it wasn't it, and I'm not disparaging it because it is a really big deal and it's something I'm immensely proud of. But I got it for protection of. I don't know, why do I see? This is what happens because it makes me emotional when I talk about it. I got it for protection of vulnerable consumers from financial abuse. So it's because of the stuff that we've done around highlighting the fact that this is a serious crime. It's not a silly fraud. It's not a silly scam. It's not a trick. It's actually, and particularly the work that I do focuses on harm, which tends to focus on older people who are targeted by organised crime groups, and they don't have the opportunity to recover as much as younger people would, financially or mentally. So that's where I tend to focus my attention. And I am a bit of a lobbyer. If I get something in my head and I think there's something unjust or unfair, I am very, my D comes up very high, and I'm like, this is where we're going with this.
Yeah.
This is the right thing to do. We need to do this.
But you say about if it's unfair. So I know in terms of values, we have very similar values. It's all about fairness and it's all about equality. So you, with fairness, like you say, I know, and just sharing with the listeners and those that are watching, your red can skyrocket, like they say, a dog with a bone. But I've seen you when you are on a mission, and whilst without thinking about what it is that you do, because what you do is I honestly, Lou, I am in awe of you. I think it is amazing what you do. But if it's not that, and if it's something else, so say if it was something else like in your life and you were just like, no, actually, you just told me you're the captain of the hockey team, are you not?
Yeah.
You know, and so I'm sure when you're on the pitch playing hockey, you want to win, your red can probably come up, perhaps to the detriment. You know, do you ever recognise?
It's not in hockey so much because I'm the captain of the threes, and it's sort of this. It's an inclusive team, so it's more about having fun in relation to that. But yes, I can be, and I don't. I think bossy is a really sexist term, and it's only one that's used for women. But I sometimes can get on a bit of a mission where I can see where I need to be, and if you're in the way, I have been known to not take people on the journey with me, just like boulder you out of the way as I'm going through, which would be an
rhino,
absolute rhino, literally, like or like jump over you. However, I'm getting around, doesn't matter. I'm not interested because I need to get to there, and that's where I see that I need to get. So yes, I can be and a bit defiant. As I've got older, I've got more aware of myself, and the more stuff that obviously that we've done together as well, I think the more that I've understood myself and understood other people, the more I've learned strategies to just temper that. And there are ways to still be a rhino, but just like a trotting rhino.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and you talked about, and I'm just thinking now about relationships and how you recognize your rhino is going too hard and that I need to steady back and trot a little bit. So your partnership that you've got with Adam on the Consumer Friends.
Yeah.
Adam is very different style to you. So how has it helped you and Adam in your working relationship?
Adam's also a really long friend of mine, so it's quite an honest relationship. But his yellow's quite high, which is helpful. So his yellow's high, but he's blue as well, isn't he? He's an S. Is he an S? Yeah.
Yeah, that's green.
Yeah. green, so he's a green, not a blue. Right? He tells me to shut up quite a lot. He goes, "You're annoying me. You're talking too much. I can't keep up with you. I'm going home." So that, and I'll go, "You're annoying me because you're not letting me talk, and then you're interrupting me, which makes me want to start again, which is annoying me." So we have to take a time out, and we do. But we're quite good at communicating that with each other. Or he lets me just go off and do it if I need to do, and I'll go, "Can you just say yes, that it's okay that I do it then?" And he's like, "Yes." So there's permission there. But Sophie, who is my deputy within the scams team, she's a C and an S. But that works perfectly because she's like the yin to my yang. The scams team would not exist and work if she hadn't been there from the start to do it, so that I can go off and do all the showing off and the shouting and the influencing and the, "Oh my God, look at us, aren't we amazing? This is what we need to do," shouting about the people without somebody filling in the blocks behind and actually managing the ship and ensuring that there's that stability there. It just wouldn't work. I can do that. I don't like doing it.
And that is absolutely the key with all of this stuff. We can all be different personality styles. We can all flex and adapt. But if you are doing something that is completely opposite to you, so like you say, the role that Sophie does, if you were doing that all the time, I think you would find it exhausting because you're not being Lou.
No, I also can't do it as well as she can do it.
No.
And I also don't think about things in the way that she thinks about things. It's really hard for me to think about things like that.
Yeah.
It's because I'm generally 2 or 3 steps ahead, not in the, people are like, "Be in the present." I'm like, I don't think I've ever been in the present, not in my whole life. I've really tried. I've tried like yoga, meditating, all of it. And I'm like, nope. It's just constant like that.
Well,
so it works.
Is that also because you are neurodivergent?
Yeah, probably as well. But again, coping strategies for that. Like you do cope. You have. So mine was a late onset diagnosis. So I'd only got diagnosed this year. I mean, it's not. I've got ADHD for anybody listening, but it's not something that will be new to people, and it's not something I advertise either. It's not a secret. My son is autistic, and I think he's probably got ADHD as well, but he doesn't need both. He's got autism. It's what it is. My daughter, I think, potentially has attention deficit, so she doesn't have the hyper, but she does have some processing. So she's about to start doing her GCSEs. So I was like, right, she doesn't want to be diagnosed, that's absolutely fine. It's her choice. She's old enough to make her own decisions. But I said, right, I'll go and see if I've got it, because then genetically you're very likely, which means we can then treat you as such without either one of us feel like imposters, like we're making it up. But we can teach us, and I can then help you get through your exams. She's very bright, but help her get through her exams with different coping techniques. And she was like, all right. So then I went and got diagnosed. And I don't know why I was surprised. I'd really like it. But when you know something, but then I wouldn't go down the road of really like looking into whether I was, because I felt like an imposter. So I was like, just go and get a diagnosis. And my diagnosis was, my ADHD is quite severe, my hyper and my inattention. But because of the way of the world and because of the way my brain functions, I have very good coping strategies. So it appears more moderate to the outside world. So, but it has explained why I constantly have like inner narration, music playing in my head, like all that. It's never quiet.
Well, it also explains that if we rewind this to 25 minutes ago and you tell me what it is that you do and you list all of those roles, including the Ned roles, the other roles, this role, or that role, it probably would explain how you managed to do all of those roles and how
I think as well with like, so that's sort of being an influencer and the work that we've done together throughout this around the personality profiling. Do you know what I think the greatest thing about it is? That it's provided me permission to be myself, because it's written down, so it gives you that permission to be completely authentic. So really lean into it. Well, I certainly have. I've really leaned into it because, again, if you chuck in the neurodiversity as well, you mask quite a lot of the time because you're trying to fit in with the neurotypical world. But actually having your personality profile there and having that, what I've just gone is, right, this is who I am, because it gives me lots of anxiety to mask it, and I hadn't realised, and then you can get burnout from that. So actually just really lean into who you are, and people really respond to that being authentic. People really respond to it. I'm also quite good at what I do, so that but backing yourself in that space, that was another thing I didn't really do. Like go like you the MBE, you see that, like not backing myself, having that imposter syndrome, but learning about your personality profile. I was like, do you know what? No, this is all right. Actually, this is all right. It's giving me that more confidence and permission to lean into it.
Yeah, to lean
Thank
into all
you.
your.
Thank you for that.
Oh, thank you. Well, it's leaning into all your strengths
Mm.
and also being aware of those blind spots of how you can be when you're with people who are polar opposite. I mean,
Yes.
give me an example. We were talking before about a Ned interview role that you were having, that you perhaps thought you might have been a little too authentic, but then that.
I swore on it, didn't I? I didn't mean to either. I swore. I didn't mean to swear on it because I was talking about why I wanted to be. I'm waiting to find out if I've actually been shortlisted for it. I don't know whether they will, but Ned role. So I really enjoy it. I'm trying to build. I'm building my non-exec director portfolios and my board portfolios because I like that's quick. You passport in, make a change, passport out. I quite like that role. But I have sat on some boards where I haven't been the right fit. And then I didn't like going to it, gave me lots of anxiety. I felt like I had to change who I was. So I'm trying to find the ones now that are the right fit for me. So I give myself like a pep talk before I go on the interviews, which is about just be very authentic. And also I always use that. I'm an influencer. This is my personality profile. I always use it. I'm a persuader. That's what I do. That's my role. So I always say that out loud. And if they don't want that sort of personality on the board, obviously with my skill set as well, because I've got I'm a recognised expert in consumer vulnerability, consumer regulations, all that stuff. They don't want that, and that's not the right. If it was a very conservative board, I probably wouldn't fit in. Let's be real. So from that perspective, or if it was very conservative, they wanted it to be jazzed up a little bit, then I'm your person. Do you know what I mean? So it's whether your face fits.
But it's also, like you say, it's allowing you to be you, giving you permission to be who you are. Because, like you say, if you took a role on, and this isn't just as Ned roles, if you take a role on, so say for example me, if I took a role on that was data entry in a quiet space, 5 days a week, and I wasn't, you didn't talk, or like working in a library. If I had to do it, absolutely I could do it. But I would get to the end of the week and I would be exhausted because I'm not playing to my strengths. I'm masking who I am and I'm being somebody completely different. It's not sustainable way to work.
It's not, and it's feeling, so I need to work in environments that I feel safe to be myself as well, and that people aren't going to think that, oh my God, what is that woman doing? Who is that woman? Like, I need to feel, I don't want to feel like an idiot when actually, and I don't want to feel like I have to prove myself all the time. There is an element of that when you start any new role, you have to prove yourself, and it's also, boards are really, for me, development wise, there's so much sitting and listening, and it's so good for me to hone those, to sit, to listen, to write questions down, to follow up, to absorb, to read papers and prep before I go to meetings, not fake it till I make it, not wing it. So there's a lot of, it's a really good skill set for me to hone the things I'm not naturally good at.
I can 100% agree. So I haven't done many board roles, and I think it's probably because it doesn't excite me like it excites you. It's that learning to I've got a point to make on this agenda point, and I'm going to put my hand up respectfully, and I'm going to wait for the chair to ask me to join in, as opposed to a very extreme yellow like we both are that would just go, yeah, but hold on a minute, and introduce. It's very much a learn that actually this is, that kind of behavior is respectful for everybody so that everybody gets a voice.
It's also, you might get shushed. We need to move on now, and you have to take that, which is really good for me to, because it doesn't make, I don't worry about it now. Whereas before I'd be personally like wounded by it. Don't worry about that now. And also there's a chair and I'm not in charge. So it's really good. It's a really good place for me to learn, observe, and hone the skills that I'm still working on from being such a high yellow as well. Like, so a couple of the other things, like, so Sophie and I have a really open relationship from a management perspective at work. And one of the things she said to me was, you make decisions too quickly. It makes people feel like you haven't considered it. You might ask me a question, so you might be a blue, or you might be green, or you might even be a red, and you ask me a question, and the question to you is really important. The decision that you need making is really important. I've made up my mind before you finish talking, right? I've made a decision, and it's a well formatted decision based on 22 years of experience in the job, and based on that, but I don't give them that answer now. So I used to, because it makes people feel like they're not listened to, or like they weren't heard, or that I haven't considered it properly. So there are two things that happen with that. One, people feel like she doesn't care, she's not bothered, why am I bothering? So then people don't feel valued. And the other one is it makes people feel like they're on a wobble board, like, oh my God, she's so laissez-faire, she's not considering things properly, she hasn't provided evidence or objectivity behind that decision-making process, which can then make people feel concerned that I'm not risk adverse enough.
Yeah.
So now, as a rule, I always go, I'll have to think about that. Let me consider it.
Even though you've made your decision.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But then, do you know what it makes me do now is still consider my decision, because I haven't told the other person. So it's because it's not off my to-do list, because I haven't communicated it, I am considering it. And sometimes I do change or think, actually, I've thought about an extra step to that. Oh, I didn't think about that. So it's really beneficial for everybody.
Yeah.
And emails, because I'm not very good at emails. Like, people are good at emails, I'm not. My inbox is a place of doom. My team know if they want me to do something with something, they write, please read, in the subject line, in capitals.
Yeah. Or no, I just WhatsApp you as well, because I just think
you WhatsApp me. Yeah, you do. Yeah. And you remind me on WhatsApp. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. I said, oh, pick up the phone. I go, people are always like, do you want a Teams meeting? I'm like, I move around a lot all day. Like, I might move where I'm working, or I might sit there, or I might go for a walk, or I might listen to a meeting on my headphones, or whatever I'm doing. I was like, you're much better off just picking up the phone, because I can have you and I can move around then.
Yeah.
So there's things, but there's also, I'm very open. So I'm very open with the team. I said, look, I'm aware that sometimes I can be a lot, and sometimes my style is a lot of stimulation a lot of the time. Speak very quickly, I'm very energetic, and for people, I said, but you can go slow down, or I can't quite do that, or can you explain that to me in a different way, or Louise, what the hell, do you want to go and have a little walk and then come back and talk to me after? And I'll go, yeah. So I'm quite open. I don't find that offensive.
No, but that's because you have self-awareness, whereas others that maybe, you know, the style that we are, that don't have that awareness, would be like, what do you mean I'm too much or anything? I mean, I think, yeah, that's a whole other podcast, actually, isn't it?
Well, it's but I also have outlets now. So we're launching, so with some of the work we're doing with Consumer Friend, we do a lot of training on consumer vulnerability and communication and inclusive services, and I run that training, and I get to be 100. It's my own business, right? So I can be 100% myself. I'm not representing anybody else other than Consumer Friend, me and Adam, right? So we can run that how we want, and it's so fun, and it's all about people. It's basically about this stuff. It's about, how do you communicate with people? How do you ensure that what you're doing as an organisation is inclusive, and you're scooping up neurodiversity, and you're scooping up age, and you're scooping up language, and all this stuff brought into one place. So, I mean, I like to, if I was better at business, I wouldn't call it this, but it's basically don't be a twat. That's what we should call it, but I'm not sure many people would buy that.
Yeah, I think maybe not, you know, stick to Consumer Friends. Yes. Oh, Lou, I could chat to you for hours, and quite often we do meet up for a coffee, and then 2 hours have gone past. We've both gone, oh, okay, let's leave that now. So what would be your lasting thought to leave with the listeners on profiling?
Oh, do it and lean into it. It's like the best thing ever. It's like, it was like it's not to be too like euphoric, but I'm going to be, obviously, because I'm very dramatic like that. It is a bit like an awakening. It's like one of the best things you can do. It shines a really friendly, kind, positive light on yourself, and it's written down, so it provides that clarity about where you're. It's a personal development plan in the best format possible.
Thank you.
Well, it is.
And if people want to find you, where's the best place that they can get all the details?
LinkedIn.
I was going to say put them on the show notes, but if they, and are you Louise Baxter on LinkedIn?
I am Louise Baxter on LinkedIn. My mum says I have to have a proper name. The name she gave me when I'm on platforms outside of my friendship group.
Okay, Louise Baxter, but all the links are in the show notes. Please go and find Lou and check her out and connect. It's been a pleasure, Lou, to have you on this podcast episode. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
How has this conversation had an impact on you? What have you learnt? What will you do differently? Do leave a review on Apple or Spotify on It Starts With You podcast. And also leave a comment down below. Do also then connect with me on social media. I'm on Instagram, Facebook and LinkedIn. And why not even join the Facebook group It Starts With You and keep the learning ongoing. Thank you for listening.